This is my cat, by the way, Dalton. I rescued him. Say hi, Dalton. What? I swear he's friendly. Get out of here, I'm filming. Hello, folks. Before the video starts and I reveal to you the shocking secret I learned working in a psychiatric unit, I'm going to encourage y'all to stick around because afterwards I'm going to share with you some of my views on anxiety. And for all you bookworms out there, FYI, this guy is a bookworm, I'm going to give you some references. Authors who are masterful at their craft, whose works have given me clarity over the years. And should you choose to pick them up, I hope they give you some clarity. Because life is really just about reaching that inner balance, right? And I can't imagine even trying to reach inner balance without perspective. And these authors have given me perspective, and I hope they can add to your perspective. So enjoy the video, and thank you very much. In 2017, I found myself in Philadelphia. I was a nursing student and I was beginning a clinical in the psych ward. Prior to that, I had done 5 years active duty in the Navy Hospital Corps, and at that time I was still a reservist. I was attached to a Marine unit. I enjoyed psych. In fact, at the time I enjoyed it so much I had aspirations to one day become a psych nurse practitioner. So I was comfortable in a setting that most people were uncomfortable in. One of the things that did shock me about the psych ward was you'd get a patient, they'd typically be dropped off by their relatives, children, grandchildren, and a lot of times you'd get this seemingly sweet geriatric patient, and the reason would be, oh, they attacked so-and-so with a knife or some weapon or bit somebody or whatnot, and due to being somewhat out of control, they're being dropped off at the psych ward. And so I went about my patient care. I treat the patient and I would take in consideration that this patient attacked somebody with a weapon or was hostile in some way. Now, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but it felt like a majority of the time, or at least half the time, the patient would be dropped off and then the family would just leave for the weekend or the week. I remember one family went to Disney World and we couldn't reach them. Now, you can't make any declarations or assumptions, but it's pretty odd to drop a relative off for a day or two, but then take off for the week. Did they, in fact, commit this action that they're being admitted for? Or was the family just simply overwhelmed and had to get away? And I don't blame the family. I don't blame the relatives. This isn't a video condemning anybody. It is excruciatingly hard work to take care of a loved one who may be going through Alzheimer's or has some sort of psychiatric history. It is exhausting. A lot of all-nighters, lack of sleep, lots of work, no appreciation for what you do. It is a very, very arduous task. I mean, it is exhausting for nurses, and we have everything at our disposal. So I can't imagine what it's like for relatives, what it's like for children to see relatives going through that. So I don't blame anybody for saying what they got to say, maybe, and dropping off their relatives in the psych ward. The reason I'm talking about it is from a nursing perspective. It taught me that though the treatment plan is a collaborative one between the patient and the provider and the family, and what the family says is so important, I have to also make sure that I'm not going in there prejudging the patient or just going based on solely what the family tells me, especially for a patient who can't defend themselves, just limiting it to Alzheimer's patients. And God bless them all, but every nurse knows once 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. hits and that sundowning starts, I mean, it is painful to watch what happens. You see somebody who could be lovely the whole shift, and this poor person suddenly changes and becomes afraid and unknowing and restless. The energy and the restlessness, I mean, all night long, this person could be stirring, climbing out of bed. I mean, there's things that we could do as healthcare providers like assigning someone to sit with the patient for a one-to-one, but it is just heartbreaking to watch. And to go through that day in and day out as a family, I mean, God bless the families, but it is hard. And I don't blame anybody for saying what they have to say because they're at the end of their rope and they just need a break. Like I said, this is not a video of condemnation. This is just, from a nurse's perspective, learning to take all sides into consideration and not walking into that treatment room with a preconceived notion. I mean, it's good to know, you know, some patients really did bite somebody, or some patients have issues that are well documented, but you should still take everything with a grain of salt and go into every patient's room with fresh eyes. And the 3-3-3 rule, have you ever heard of this? It's a method for combating anxiety. So when feelings of anxiety strike, close your eyes, breathe in, breathe out, and name 3 things that you can see with your eyes. I can see leaves, I can see a tree, I can see the sky. Next, listen to your surroundings and name 3 things that you can hear. Well, I can hear the cars some distance away. Kind of sounds like running water a little bit. I can hear a squirrel in the distance somewhere. And I can hear rustling leaves in the background somewhere. I think it's from somebody's walking a dog. And next, and this is the last step, move 3 parts of your body. So, I guess this is my shoulders, back area. Crack my back a little bit. My neck. And now I'm going to stretch my legs. There we go. That's the 3-3-3 rule. You're welcome. Hello, folks. I hope you're enjoying the interview. Before we go back, let me announce I wrote a children's book, Isabel Learns to Share, a love letter from me to my firstborn daughter, Isabel. It's available on Amazon, but let me be clear. In a world of AI, this book is written by me, every word of it. Everything this book earns goes right to the podcast. This book emphasizes family values, respects parents, and respects children as they go through life making mistakes, but ultimately learning how to become their best selves. Click the link down below, support the podcast, and get yourself a copy. Thank you very much. Did you know that 40 million Americans, that's 19.1% of American adults, suffer from anxiety? And I don't know the figures for children, but the symptoms of anxiety typically develop before the age of 21. I know that as a nurse, I have been seeing a major shift in the last 5 years when it comes to children. You can't take insulin if you don't have diabetes. You can't take antibiotics if you don't have an infection. Nobody's going to prescribe that to you. And yet children, especially teenagers, for things like, oh, high school is stressful. Really? They could be put on these antidepressants and then there's no future evaluation. Anxiety is really a concern of mine because it affects everybody. At some point, all of us are going to deal with anxiety, especially when it comes to coping mechanisms. I find that coping mechanisms will get everybody. Coping with having to retire, coping with having children, coping with going into high school, coping with graduating high school and getting into college, coping with your first job. I find that anxiety is something we don't pay much attention to, or we try to deny, or we try to handle with medications. And this is not a condemnation of medications. There are people that really do require medications, and medications are doing a fantastic job for them. But sometimes it feels like it's the go-to. And the problem is that anxiety is never, ever going to go away. It's like pain, right? Some people, they want pain meds. They want to make the pain go away. And you tell them, well, you're on morphine or Dilaudid. If we were to make the pain absolutely go away, down to zero indefinitely, we would be over-medicating you. And there are other problems like, say, respiratory collapse. And so you develop a plan with the patient if there's an acceptable amount of pain that they agree to, and maybe we can get it down to there because we don't want to over-medicate. I believe the same goes with anxiety. There's a little bit that's always going to be there, and you may have to deal with it, but there's ways to deal with it. This is something the Marines taught me, just being out here. This is how I deal with it. This is amazing. The fresh air. nature, wearing this flak jacket, trying to lose some weight. Because boy, Nurse Dad needs to lose some weight. This is not for everybody. And again, I'm not condemning medication. I'm just saying, try to see if there is a natural thing that you could do. What foods you're eating. And we all know that foods in this country, the ingredients, they're disgraceful. I mean, American food is banned in 30 other countries for a reason. That's one of the things I've done, especially with my children. I purchased natural peanut butter and jelly and mayo and cheese and as much as I could do because, I'm not made of money and this stuff is expensive, but I try to clean up the diet as much as possible. Medicine is not up to date on the effects of diet on the health. I work out as much as I can, which is not saying a lot. I try to walk. I try to ride my bike. And some people, they don't have my baseline or your baseline. They have tragic childhoods. They were abused. They saw something that was horrific, or they were born with something. And God bless them all. Medication, modern science, use it. And I'm so conscious of mental health with my own children because of technology. And I'm often reminded of a play that was turned into a movie. It was, in fact, Humphrey Bogart's first role as a bad guy, called The Petrified Forest. And basically its theme was, as technology becomes more prevalent in our lives, it's gonna make us more neurotic, using an older term. It's gonna disconnect us from ourselves and from each other. And it's gonna make us feel like we have less purpose in life. I believe that is the key to everything. More and more, people are feeling like they have less purpose in life. They're feeling like they have less hope to make something of themselves and to provide a future for their children and to retire with dignity like they deserve, to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And for many people, walking through the forest on a hike isn't gonna cut it. With social media, we've seen increased rates of suicide and depression among younger people, especially females. And though I would certainly never condemn medicine, I work in medicine, we all know that the approach is prescribing pills. I'll tell you a secret about me. I was placed in special education when I was in 4th grade. And this is back in the 90s when there wasn't much, there weren't many inclusion classes. It was basically a room. You could be in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 5th grade. If you were in special ed, you were with these students. And to make matters worse, they did not include us in anything. At lunch, we sat in the middle of the cafeteria, like targets. I was in 4th grade sitting in a music class that was designed for 2nd graders, and I knew it because I'd watched 2nd graders doing what we were doing. When there was the 4th grade play, I sat with the 2nd and 1st graders or 3rd graders, whatever, and I watched my fellow 4th graders participate. I wasn't even asked. In 5th grade, there was the 5th grade volleyball tournament. It was the big talk of the school. Nobody thought to include me. I used to ask to go to the bathroom as an excuse to watch the 5th graders, my fellow 5th graders, play volleyball. And not just to watch them, I would study them. I would look at them and try to figure out what they had that was better, that made them better than me. 10, 11 years old, 5th grade, and I was at the gymnasium looking through the door, really brainstorming, really trying to figure out what they had that was better, that made them better than me. I overate, I gained weight, I wore glasses, I was a target, I was bullied. I mean, thank God at the time there was no social media. I can go home and escape it all, and I did. I retreated to art, I retreated to video games. I didn't really go into sports until I was in 7th grade. So at that time, I was just an overweight, four-eyed geek. I really believed I was worthless. But time went on, and I was very motivated, even at that time, to get out of special ed. I studied harder. I was mainstreamed in regular ed for a few classes. When 7th grade came, my parents supported me as I entered football and wrestling and track. I lost weight. I eventually got out of special ed. I'm really grateful at the time that there wasn't a philosophy that I've seen that more prevalent today, where self-acceptance is really important. But I feel that if I was going through that today, some guidance counselor would have put me on antidepressants and would have told me I was fine the way I was, and that there's some truth in that. Certainly, you are who you are, but I do feel like we should always be working on ourselves, and I don't see anything wrong with the 5th grade me despising his situation, looking in the mirror saying, you know, I want to be in shape and I don't want to be in special education. And this is not a condemnation of people in special education. My mom is a retired department head of special education, and I have always spoken highly of people in those situations. But my school at the time seemed to really want me to stay there. And I felt I didn't need it. I had medical issues when I was younger. I missed a lot of school. Nobody knew that I needed glasses till I was in 2nd grade, so I could never see the board. It was really the first time in my life that I worked towards something I believed in, and I rejected everyone's assessment of who I am. Not so much my peers, but certainly the adult world. I rejected being in a 2nd grade music class when I was in 4th grade. I rejected not being able to participate in the activities that my peers were participating in. And when I was in sports, I worked hard to be the best that I could be, and I was eventually a county champion in wrestling and an all-state in football, defense and offense. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm just glad I wasn't medicated. I'm glad that some adult wasn't trying to derail my efforts and try to get me to feel comfortable where I was, because I was hateful. I hated myself and I hated everybody else. I never would have accepted that situation. I might have remained there, but I would have become a horrible human being, a self-loathing and just loathing human being if I would have stayed in that environment. And my problem with prescribing medication to children who are stressed out in school, I mean, today, if you're stressed out in high school, they give you medication. What do you know? You're stressed out and it's high school. As a nurse, more and more, I see young adults who were prescribed medication when they were 15, 16, and they're still on it. There was no follow-up or further evaluation or treatment plan designed to get them off of these medications. And now they feel like they can't deal with anxiety without them. And I know this is a touchy subject for certain people, but I'm going to go there because not everybody needs medication. And I am seeing more and more young lives that appear to be ruined or severely damaged because some adult somewhere said, hey, swallow this. This will make all the pain go away. And it's a crock. It really is a crock. Nurse Dad here. For you college students or novice nurses, I want to let you know that in the description below, there is a link for 2 free Nurse Dad guides. The first guide I designed for college students on how to better optimize your time so you could do the things that you want to do in life, but still try to go for that A. The second guide is for nurses specifically based on my life experiences as an ER nurse and in the military. Just a few tricks on how to multitask and not burn out in patient care. So whether for you or for someone you know, I hope you find these guides helpful. Thank you very much. Nurse Dad out. I feel like I had a lot more structure going into this. I certainly mapped out approaches, bullet points that I wanted to hit, and I didn't hit any of them. So forgive me for that. This is a passionate one for me because I've lost friends of mine in the military. I've seen people do horrific things to themselves in medicine. You know, you read the statistics, you feel the inflation, and you feel just this overwhelming sense that, is the world going in the right direction? Am I going to be able to provide for my children? What are they going to do? You know, you have houses in this area that are the average house is $800,000. It's what are you going to tell your children? How are they going to afford that? And you can't just always move away. You can move to another state. Where? Last time I checked, everywhere is expensive. Keep watching this video to the end because after this segment, I'm going to share with you some authors that I think you should read. These are, I guess, can you say they're each a Bible? Are you supposed to have one Bible? But to me, these are Bible reads. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video and you like what I do, please like and share and subscribe. Help the channel out. And I'll talk to you later, all right? Nurse Dad out. Renee Marie Rilke's 10 Letters to a Young Poet, one of the 20th century's greatest poets, writing to an amateur about just how vital solitude is in the human experience. Really makes me think, especially in times when I find myself alone. Carl Jung, my man, The Undiscovered Self, my go-to for one of the greatest discussions on the duality of the human psyche and the capacity for evil in every person. Beware of statistical thinking, folks. William Styron, who wrote such classics like Sophie's Choice and Set This House on Fire, had later in life been clinically depressed. Nobody describes the experience better than Styron in his memoir, Darkness Visible, a Memoir of Madness. James Baldwin and his 2 essays, Within the Fire Next Time, 1955. There's a lot of clinician-authored crap about race in America, but they're just second-rate compared to Baldwin. I added this because talking about race is important. Just don't get stupid about it. We're all in it together, America. Every American should read the Pulitzer Prize-winning book by Gordon S. Wood entitled The Radicalism of the American Revolution. I read this right before boot camp back in the day, and it gave me such perspective on my own country. I mean, what was it that colonial America had that separated it from everyone else, that allowed it to break with tradition? This book breaks down our country in such a beautiful way and connects us to each other and really reminds us of how we should live within this country. And I included it because I find that it is important for our mental health to better understand where it is we actually live, what the tradition is, and how we're supposed to go forward.